Ah, the Labour Party. Not a day goes by when something is not happening to them, and especially recently with the election of Jeremy Corbyn as their leader a couple of years ago. Well, we've gone from wanting to have segregated carriages between men and women in an effort to curb sexual assault or harassment. We've also had the proposal, which is even more stupid, of banning after work drinks so that women can have an equal chance of getting promotions than men, because apparently that's where all the deals and relationships are forged. You know, the once in a month drink, or maybe once in a year drink if you work too much. Yeah, rather than working hard, forging relationships through the workplace. But no, apparently women suffer from that because they have to look after all the kids, even though there are men as well who also have to look after their own kids. But that's besides the point. It was never going to work, and, well, they've not been elected. And then there was accusations of anti-Semitism within the party, and Ken Livingstone, I believe, had to resign or leave or be fired, or something happened to him because of those accusations. Further compounding this racist reputation they have gained under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party is now under fire for what can only be described as discrimination. Basically, in one of Jeremy Corbyn's many rallies where he just does what he usually does and talks to a bunch of young, middle-class, student-y types, or just the old champagne socialist types, and about how he's going to change the country for the better and get rid of the Tory scum. Only the admission prices were somewhat different than usual, and apparently in an effort to increase representation within the Labour Party between whites and what we call over here BAMEs, or black and minority ethnic. Yeah, I don't understand why blacks are considered separate from whatever a minority ethnic is, considering they are also a minority ethnicity. It's just stupid, there's no point thinking about it. They decided they would subsidise a specific ticket so that ethnic minorities can essentially get into the speech at a lower price than whites. Whites would pay the normal fee of £40, and the non-whites would essentially pay 30 quid. So they've chalked off £10 in an effort to essentially bring more ethnicities into the fold. Now, this is their reasoning behind this, and this was in the Mail on Sunday. A Labour spokesman said the basic price of a conference pass is the same for all members, but at the request of our East Midlands Regional Board, the party will subsidise part of the cost of this year's conference pass for BAME members to encourage attendance and improve representation. And that seems to be the only reason, not maybe economic reasons, like maybe some of them are more poorer than whites. And as Andrew Bridgen MP said, this is racism. In effect, Labour is levying a tax on the basis of the colour of a person's skin. It shows a contempt for the white working class. He then said the insanity of the idea meant that in theory, wealthy Leicester MP Keith Vaz, whose family has Indian roots, would pay less to attend the event than much less well-off activists. It's true, and Labour MPs already have admitted that the white working class have it very hard. Shadow Education Secretary Angela Rayner said that statistics show that white working class people, and white working class boys in particular, are in many respects at the bottom of the heap. In fact, I think it's only the travellers and the gypsies that are lower than them, and this was in the annual race audit that I covered during the Munro Bergdorf thing, or whatever she was called, when she did that horrible video for the BBC. In fact, she's even gone on to say that I think it's because as we've tried to deal with some of the issues around race and women's agendas, around tackling some of the discrimination that's there, it's actually had a negative impact on the food chain for white working boys. Essentially, what she means is they spent so much time trying to work out the problems of women and other ethnicities that they've abandoned the white working classes, specifically white men and white boys. I mean, you only have to go and look at the white working class areas in a city like Sheffield or Manchester or Salford in particular, and you will find that these places have largely been abandoned in favour of regenerating other areas. Now, you will occasionally get the odd regeneration of an area that is mainly white, but it's usually right towards the very end where the area's already been so run down that they have no choice but to do so. They just let it go on and on and on, because they don't think that these people have issues because they're white. They think, oh, you know, you're the majority population, you have no issues, deal with it. It seems now that the Labour Party understand these issues. In fact, they've probably always understood these issues, because they have certain demographics that they have to appeal to in order to win elections, even though it's not winning them elections, because these same demographics aren't voting for them enough to win. You can see how they've lost what they once were. They're no longer really the part of the working class. Like, you don't really see the working classes in general really voting for them en masse. There are obviously differences, but overall it's not working. They're attracting a mainly middle class demographic, which is not what they were meant to be representing. And Jeremy Corbyn is a symbol of this. He's an MP for a very rich area of London. Anyway, back to the story. In fact, it seems that the Labour Party might have actually broken the law, because you see, in this country, you can't actually discriminate against different groups of people in this way. So you cannot charge in a business, for example, one price for whites, one price for blacks, one price for Asians, and things like that. You simply cannot do that. And in fact, there is a commission set up, established by the Labour Party themselves, under the Equality Act of 2006 when that was set up, and they're called the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and it's their job to essentially investigate anything that may be reported as discriminatory. Now, loads of people contacted them and contacted the Leicestershire Police. This was the police force as the jurisdiction in the area they were going to be having this speech, which was in Loughborough, and they told Breitbart London that they were aware of the situation and were looking into it, and assigned an incident number of 303-2101-2018, but declined to respond to any members of the public. And they also said that they were aware of concerns raised regarding admission prices at a Labour Party conference held in Leicestershire, and that if anybody feels that the Equality Act may have been breached, they would contact the AHRC. As much as the website might like to say that they effectively confirmed they have no interest, they were looking into it. However, I do believe that even though this breaks the law, I don't think this is really something the police need to spend a lot of time on. I do think the AHRC can potentially sort this out themselves, and if they found reason to believe that this was an illegal act, which I think it pretty much is, they can probably notify the police, and the police will probably hand out a fine or something. I don't know exactly what they can do, but it just seems that the Labour Party are now in some very serious shit, because in their efforts to look all-encompassing and multicultural, and in their attempt to look like they're doing something about creating more opportunities to involve people like me, the minority ethnics, quote-unquote, into politics, they've only gone and discriminated against everybody else, white people. This is not how you deal with discrimination. This is not how you bring people together. You don't use racism to combat racism. You are not racist to another group of people in order to include another group of people. This logic does not work, but we're dealing with a social justice infested Labour Party, so I could make the rhetorical question say I don't know where this logic comes from, but I actually know where it comes from. It's quite interesting because I had a conversation with one of my family members, and she said it was positive discrimination on behalf of the minority ethnic Labour supporters, or people who are interested in seeing what Jeremy Corbyn has to say. But on the other hand, it's also negative discrimination against white people. So in effect, we're seeing ethnic minorities essentially being patronised, which is the best word I can say, and white people essentially being burdened with an extra price. All you really needed to do was probably just, I don't know, advertise the speech in areas where it's perhaps more Asian or more black, or this, that and the other. I mean, why not just put loads of posters around where it's legally allowed to do so, or ask for advertising space on websites or Twitter or something. I don't know. There are other ways of doing this without having to essentially discriminate against another group of people, because this is only going to anger that group of people, and in fact it's probably going to anger a lot of ethnic minorities, because they don't exactly like being given this preferential treatment. They'd rather, you know, do things on their own. They'd rather be given the opportunity and then essentially through their own skill, their own graft or what have you, and make life the way they want to. And I also think it's a similar case with Jeremy Corbyn's speeches. I think they would rather pay the same price as everybody else and be treated the same as everybody else, because this is only furthering differences. This is the Labour Party essentially saying white people and non-white people are different, and so should pay differently. Because as you can see, there's also a different price for students or young people. I assume it means students, usually, but there's also probably a different price for pensioners, and that's something that makes sense. That's technically discrimination, but you can understand why. Young people and old people tend not to have as much money as people in the middle. It makes sense, but race? Really? That only serves to divide people. If you do it with age, it doesn't. You can understand why. And it's the same with gender. If you pay somebody or if you charge somebody a different price if they're a man compared to if they're a woman, that's only going to further divides. And that's not how you do these things. It's absolutely crazy that the Labour Party thought this was a great scheme, and now they've potentially broken the law. But this is why they can't win elections. This is why they're unelectable. This is why people are slowly distrusting them, slowly beginning to dislike them. They're too far to the left. They're too out there. And not only that, their actions suggest that they're not really interested in representing everybody, or at least the core demographic that they were originally supposed to be representing. The working class, or the white working class. In fact, it's the working class in general, but we all know who the majority is in that case, but it doesn't really matter. They've lost touch. They've completely lost touch, and this will only reflect badly in the next election in a couple of years' time. Thing is, I can't even see them learning from this lesson. I think they'll just continue to try and do things like this, but perhaps more subtly. They will probably always advocate for things like this until somebody comes along, or a group in the Labour Party rises up and tries to force it to be a bit more centrist. But I wouldn't waste my breath. I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon with old Corbyn in power. So anyway, a little bit of a funny British politics story for you guys. And until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.